Everybody, you're here. We're here. It's Friday on Outpost Unknown, which means you are helping us exhume the X-Files. My name is Matthew. He is Jeremy.
Hey, everybody.
And we are flopping our salamander hands. We're ready to discuss Young at Heart. Salamander hands, you might be asking. Why are we going there? Jeremy, you're going to tell us. How do we get to salamander hands?
I mean, we're going to get there, but I'm still questioning why salamander. The episode starts, we're in some sort of hospital or some asylum, and there's some dude screaming in pain. It sounds like he's being tortured to death. And there's a dude rolling through the hospital, like a patient. He's in a room. He's in his wheelchair, and he's hauling ass. I don't know if you've noticed, or like they do this camera thing, like it's sitting in his lap, a steady cam in his lap, but he is trucking down those hallways to get to where he ends up opening a door where the screaming had just abruptly stopped. He sees a dude laying on the table. This Dr. Mengele is hanging out over the top of him, like after just got this bloody stump where his hand used to be. And
they literally say in the episode that's the doctor's nickname is Dr. Mengele because he just carves people up and experiments on them.
Yeah,
Ridley, I think is his actual name, right? Ridley, Dr.
Ridley or Ripley, one of those two.
Yeah. And
he goes up and he decides to threaten this patient for some reason with the scalpel.
Like, he saw nothing.
No, it wasn't even that. He's like, he starts arguing with him. It's like, he's dead. He's fucking dead. Get out of here and go to your room. Okay. Dude bounces. But he sees him.
Yeah, he sees him. His eyes blink or whatever.
Yeah, and I mean, could that have been the after effects of somebody is dead?
I actually thought the blinking kind of creeped me out because they have those like weird contacts in that kind of look like his eyes are all clouded over, and that'll be a big thing in this episode where people's eyes look kind of, it's like milky almost. Or how would you describe that? It's kind of like a milky,
like he's got cataracts forming.
Yeah, exactly. And like when they show that close up of the guy's face and his eyes look creepy, and then when he just blinks, you're just kind of like, it just kind of ooked me out a little bit because you see him in that wide shot. His arm is chopped off, and he's clearly going through some bad shit, but he's alive while it's happening.
So we get, he blinks. We have that ooh moment, and then credits. So we find out that this guy, was he a killer? Yeah.
Yeah, he's the guy that Mulder blames himself for, right?
And for some reason,
Barnett.
He's killed. Yeah, Barnett, and he's killed 7 people by the time he gets busted. Which, just like the last episode, 7 people had died before. I don't. What is it about 7 people? I'm going to keep my eyes open for that number because I feel it's going to come.
Yeah, interesting.
This
is where he gets to we meet Special Agent Reggie Purdue, Mulder's old boss. I love this guy.
And he brings Mulder in because there was a robbery that had gone awry. Somebody got shot to death, and there was a note for Mulder on the scene. That was an exact copy of a previous note that Mulder had gotten for another guy, this Barnett guy that he had put away, and was on the table getting, his hand lopped off. And as far as they know, this guy is dead, had been pronounced dead at the hospital, so they don't think it could be that. Then they go visit this signature expert, apparently that the FBI has, that wants Mulder so bad.
I wrote the quote down. She says, 10 minutes may be enough for you, Agent Mulder. Of course, I wouldn't know that from personal experience. Just like, this girl is eye-fucking him so hard. So hard.
She looks better than the Amish chick did. So. But there's just maximum sexual tension, which the scene focuses very little on the signature match and mostly that this chick wants him for some reason.
Yeah, and I'm like, is this, and I don't remember, but I was like, does this character come back in the future, or is this a one and done? Is this the only time we see this handwriting forensics expert? And I did make a note of this. Her scenes, I think she's got like 2 or 3 scenes in this because, like I said, Mulder's getting these notes from Barnett, and he used to taunt Mulder, stating that I'm going to kill you and all of this stuff, and we'll get into that. But I wanted to point out that as someone who has worked with a forensic document lab on a case before, all the stuff that they're saying in here and that this actress was saying is absolutely 100% correct. So they can literally, like, if you have written something down, if they have like an original exemplar for, like, Jeremy, if you had written something down like a year ago, and then you try to create like a fraudulent document and sign it and stuff, you could give those two to a forensic document lab, those two things, and they will analyze them. They will go microscopically down into like the pressure points of the pen, how your hand arcs on the page as you're writing, how your signature changes over time, down to like 99.99997% accuracy. Like, we will go testify in federal court that this is your handwriting, sort of thing. And all of this dialogue that they put in here with her when she was kind of talking about that kind of stuff, 100% accurate. So kudos to the writer of this, who was Chris Carter. So there you go. Good job, Chris. I appreciated that.
We find out that the reason that Barnett and Fox have this past is that when Barnett got caught, he had a hostage situation. He was surrounded by FBI agents. Mulder had his back to him. Though he had a dude in an embrace with a gun to his head, Mulder had his back and could have taken a shot, but due to regulations, like one of the only apparently handbook regulations follows, decided not to shoot him. And I understand why. If you got a gun to somebody's head, like you have to hit them in just the right spot in the back of the head to kill them. But there's also this nasty problem with ballistics and bullets that will like tear chunks off of skulls that hit other people and damage them horribly. And if he's got, somebody that close, like you shoot him in the wrong spot, he's going to shoot the hostage. You
Yeah.
shoot him in the right spot, kills him, but then piece of skull ends up killing the hostage anyway. There's reasons that these rules exist. So at that point, Mulder decided to to follow that rule, which resulted in Barnett shooting his victim and then blasting an FBI agent that had a family, that had kids, that still haunts Mulder to this day about
Yeah.
it. Like he has PTSD because of how bad he feels for what happened to an agent that he feels he could have saved.
Yeah, and this is the episode where Mulder says he was 28 and right out of the academy, and this is his very first case. So, yeah, that would scar you, I think, if you're doing everything by the book. But and as we see as we go through this, Mulder, like, more ramifications happen from Mulder not pulling the trigger and shooting somebody, and those are sort of like those quick decisions that law enforcement officials have to make. And sometimes, it's a good decision. Good things can happen. Like, if Mulder had fired, and let's say he hit the guy perfectly and the guy just drops dead right there, the hostage doesn't die, the other special agent doesn't die, great. Mulder's a hero, correct? If he does what you sort of mentioned, he shoots, but like the chunk of skull flies off and hits the hostage, kills the hostage, everyone's going to question, what the fuck were you doing shooting?
Oh yeah,
Why did
yeah,
you
gonna
shoot
run
this
his
person?
ass to the ringer for it.
Exactly. And so, it's a difficult spot that law enforcement is put in sometimes with this. And like you said, there are regulations for a reason. And Mulder chose straight out of the academy, like, this is what you're taught, and you do this in this situation. But yeah, you're going to be haunted by the fact, like, man, I could have pulled that trigger, and this guy would not have died, and the hostage wouldn't have died, sort of thing. I like that angle. I thought that was a cool angle.
So okay, so he has PTSD, and this entire case reminds him apparently that he has a responsibility to be a father figure to this guy's kids. Maybe, I don't know, he goes out to a football game and just starts watching. It's never established who he's actually watching. He never greets this dead FBI agent's wife. He's just watching some kids play some football.
Yeah. I think it was more like, I took it more of, the case has sort of drudged up all these sort of bad memories for him, and he was just trying to reflect on what he could or could not have done. Like, I'm just gonna go check out, the dead special agent's son's football game in the horrible mud. There's no grass on that field.
Yeah.
They're just playing in a mud pit. And not that he was necessarily trying to be the father figure to the kid, but just kind of like, trying to reconcile with himself, if there was any justice in what had happened, or something like that.
But they draw attention to somebody else that's also in the bleachers that doesn't do anything. You think about it, he looks like the lead singer of the band Cracker in the music video for Teen Angst. Like
Yes,
he's dressed
he does.
exactly like that.
Yeah, he
And
is.
they draw attention to him like, what is he gonna why am I looking at this guy? Is he about to trip Mulder as he walks by? But no, no, he just walks by him completely unmolested. You're supposed to notice that he's there, but you're not exactly sure why.
Yeah.
Then Mulder has this moment where he starts screaming at somebody that's not there, and a bunch of worried parents look around, look at him, and he ends
Well,
up.
they do have that close up, that tight close up of the Cracker lead singer, and he sort of turns, and you kind of see his eyeball is sort of glazed over, with the
Yeah, yeah.
cataracts, like so. You're like, okay, something's going on with this dude.
So they go visit the last person supposedly to see Barnett alive in the hospital, the wheelchair dude that we saw at the very beginning of the episode. They wheel him, he wheels him out of his room, then they have this dialogue that leads all the way down to this hall, this room is like, that's where I saw him at last. I swear I saw him blink. The only note that I have on that scene is that it was horribly acted. And I
Yeah,
was yeah.
wasn't great. Wasn't great. I agree.
Uh, the next thing that happens, and we get back to the salamander hand thing, was Reggie is talking to Mulder on the phone, and Reggie is still trying to convince him that it's like, no, this isn't Barnett. This isn't your old guy. This is some other dude. Then all of a sudden, this like you don't get a good look at it, but this gross kind of looking hand grabs Reggie around the throat and starts fucking strangling him.
While he's talking to Mulder, Mulder's like, Reggie, what's up? What's going on, Reggie?
And he's not like getting up and going to his car, or going down to Reggie's house. He's just yelling over the phone while Reggie's getting choked out by this
I, I want to
wet.
mention one thing about Reggie, because I actually really liked the Reggie character, and this was Mulder's. What he said, the Mulder's ASAC, and that's the assistant. God, what am I? I'm forgetting my acronyms. Special agent in charge, assistant special agent in charge, I believe, and that was kind of like Mulder's boss when he first got out. And there's a sequence early on when Mulder's trying to tell Reggie, like, this is Barnett, and Barnett, or Reggie's like, Barnett's dead. Like, what are you talking about? And Mulder's kind of yelling at him about it. He's like, I just feel it in my bones, man. This is him. This is him. And Reggie shuts the door. And we have this really great moment between them where Reggie's kind of like, the adult in the room at this point in time. He's the one, he's got the higher grade level. He's up a few pay grades. And he actually mentions, he's like, I had heard about this spooky Mulder thing. He's like, but I didn't really want it to be true. And he tells Mulder, he's like, Mulder, you are fucking smart. Everybody knew you were going places. I mean, there were big plans for you, and suddenly, like, you're going down this, these quote unquote spooky cases that don't amount to anything. And you kind of see, like, even, I'm not going to call him like a father figure to Mulder, but just kind of that, like, respected boss relationship to Mulder, where it's like, people feel let down in a way. Like Reggie feels a little bit responsible in some way for Mulder kind of losing his way in his opinion and going off and doing the side stuff, when they're like, dude, you could have been like the best agent here in the FBI. You got so many skills. And we learned in the previous episodes that Mulder writes all these profiles that catch serial killers. Um, Brad Dourif wanted Mulder specifically to come talk to him because, he wrote the profile that caught him. And Mulder's respected in the sense that his intelligence and what he's able to do, but everyone feels he's wasting his time with this kind of like side show sort of cases that no one really takes seriously. And you see that moment where David Duchovny, we were talking about, does David Duchovny have any moments where he actually can sort of act? I think that was a brief moment here when he's interacting with Reggie and just kind of like, you don't believe me either. Like, is that what you think, Reggie? That I'm just wasting my career and my life doing this kind of stuff? And it's kind of interrupted. I don't know if Scully comes in or something, but I like that scene and that moment between the two of them.
It was a good scene, but is yeah, I'll agree with you that Mulder, David Duchovny stepped it up, but Reggie did carry him.
Oh, agreed. That's why I said just a moment. There's a moment there. They didn't give Mulder a whole lot to work with, or David Duchovny a whole lot to work with. But I like the brief glimmer that we saw.
I like the character of Reggie. I really really like that scene, but I couldn't get over how Reggie looked like some cross between Axel Foley's boss from Beverly Hills Cop and the guy that defended O.J. Simpson
Oh
during his
yeah,
murder trial. He looked Cochran, Johnny Cochran.
yeah. Johnny Cochran.
Look,
He does have a Johnny Cochran
just looks like
feel
that, and
to
I was
him.
like, that's weird to me. Don't know why I assign stuff like this such value and shit that I'm watching, but
And
it's
Reggie's also the one that tells Scully about everything that happened. He's the one that shows Scully the video of Mulder and what happened when Mulder shot Barnett and all of that stuff. And Scully actually throws that kind of back into Mulder's face a little bit, and Mulder's like, "Well, he showed you the video," and that kind of stuff. So that all that dynamic I really liked in this episode.
so we get to Reggie dying for a weird, irritated, slick hand. We're not really sure who had killed him at that point because
Yeah.
it was interesting. I don't even know how to explain it. He was just there, and then all of a sudden, he was getting choked out by what seems like a monster. But we haven't been introduced to a monster in this episode.
Yeah, we have. That's where it kind of comes out of nowhere. And I actually wrote in my notes: the salamander hand is weird, and out of nowhere kills Reggie. And this is one of those things because throughout the rest of this episode or before this, Mulder is the only one that believes that Barnett is still alive. So he's even going to the I forget what they call them, the technicians that will age and de-age individuals for, like, the top 10 most wanted list, and they're like, oh, this guy committed a crime 20 years ago, here's what he would look like now with 20 pounds added to him and gray hair and receding hairline and stuff like that. And so Mulder's the only one that sort of believes that Barnett is actually alive. And it's not the reason why we as an audience aren't quite sure if it's Barnett is because, like, well, Barnett would have to be young. Like, he couldn't be this old. He's already dead. So what sort of happened? And it's almost like they're trying to make the audience think that Barnett, who keeps calling Mulder and taunting him and leaving him letters and stuff saying, I'm coming after you and I'm going to get you, sucker, that sort of thing, that he's, maybe someone working that worked with Barnett on the outside coming in. But no, no, no. It's Barnett with a salamander hand.
For some reason.
Well, we learn the reason when Dr. Ridley shows up.
Okay.
This is
Anyway,
very Eve. This episode reminded me of Eve a lot.
so they get over to Reggie's apartment. They start investigating what happened to him. I got this note here that Scully bursts in and just has this terrible line about I want you guys to comb this apartment so thoroughly that even the lint is investigated. It's not that I'm butchering the line, but it was so poorly delivered. Like, why didn't you just take another cut?
Yeah.
Because we had that scene in the previous episode where Mulder came in and took charge of an investigation, and it was believable. So now we need to do it with Scully in the very next
Yeah.
episode, and it just kind of fell on its face.
Yeah. I agree. It seemed a little there's times when Gillian Anderson's youth at this point in the show works against her, because sometimes, like, you can buy her completely as an FBI agent who's strong and this stuff, but sometimes when you see her, a wide shot of her bursting in with all these tall dudes around her, and she's like this very small person in stature and everything, and she tries to project her voice, you don't buy it. Not yet. You will as the series goes on and she matures a little bit, but she's still kind of got that young, just fresh out of college girl voice when she's trying to project loudly that it's hard to sell it.
We go and visit the thirsty ass signature chick again, and she confirms that, yeah, same guy that wrote it before is the same guy that wrote this. We have this follow-up that is weird. Did you ever watch Doogie Howser, MD, when you were a kid?
A few episodes. My mom wasn't huge on that show, so I didn't watch a whole lot of it.
It was a show where Patrick Harris was like a mid-teens kid, and he was a brilliant, like,
Yeah.
savant like kid who ended up becoming a doctor. Okay show. Every single episode ended the same way, with him sitting down in front of a computer with this blue screen with white text, and like he would narrate over the top of
Yes.
it while you hear the keys clacking. And we have this moment where Scully is doing this, and I swear it looks exactly how and sounds exactly how the every episode of Doogie Howser ended, with him typing on this computer. Only she's doing it for some reason by candlelight. Like, I've been using my computer a
I wrote a
lot.
note. Yeah, I wrote a note for that. It says, "We see another scene where Scully is writing up a report and a pull focus to her gun." This is
Yeah.
another sequence where her gun is sitting away from her and she starts hearing something and she looks over at it and it pull focuses to the foreground of the gun and then refocuses to her like looking serious and going up and grabbing it. They love Scully and her guns in this season. You are absolutely correct.
But also, why was she was just walking around in her apartment armed for a minute, and she answered the door with a gun in her hand. Now, I understand that she was freaked out a little bit, but there was no real reason to believe that she was in danger. She was just paranoid.
Yeah.
Can you imagine how many times you've been in your apartment or house or whatever, you hear like something go bump in the night? Is your first reaction to go grab a fucking pistol and start walking around your house, like clearing room after room? No.
Hey,
I
she's
mean,
a young woman in the city, Jeremy. You can't be too careful.
okay.
Glaber could be behind that door for all
Yeah,
she knows.
sexy ass Graber. She wants him to be there though. So she doesn't. As it turns out, this killer guy, the Barnett guy, is actually in the apartment, hiding behind, and he's going to jump her at some point. But she answers the door, and it's the doctor from that had sawed off his hand in the first place.
Yeah,
I was
Dr.
doing
Ridley.
these experiments on these kids that couldn't or that were aging too rapidly, and had figured out, the key to doing things backwards. Only it also came with the same congenital defects that these kids that he was researching on had. He
Yeah.
himself was going through the same problem, though he did look just as young in modern times as he did in that black and white film they showed him earlier in the film.
Yeah.
Why, when the doc showed up, did that immediately make Barnett retreat? Like, she opens the door. He stays long enough for the doctor to identify himself. So what is it about the doctor that scares him away?
It's a good question. Bad
Surely,
writing?
maybe, I don't know.
Chris
Like,
Carter writing?
he was already staked out in the place, and like I think he probably wanted that doctor dead. So why not just
Yeah, and
salamander hand them both?
Mulder shows up at some point. I don't know when. Maybe he decided, hey, I don't want to take the chance. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have a good answer for that.
Oh yeah, and then they go through the whole doctor confession scene, which was
Yeah.
really good, I thought.
Yeah.
The doctor talks about his past, everything that he had done. You want to talk about the salamander arm? Because I don't know.
Okay, so this is it's confusing and weird. So essentially this doctor was doing these experiments on people where, long story short, if you would chop off a hand or something, there's was it myelin or something in your cells which is prevents you from being able to regenerate like limbs. And you don't have it when you're like super young. You just get it as you age, according to the writing of Chris Carter. And so he found a way to use these children with, what is it, progenia or progeria?
Progeria.
Yeah, where they're like super young, but they age really rapidly. So you could get someone who's 5, but they look like they're 65. It's really quite sad if you've ever seen any of the children who are sort of afflicted with this. But he uses like the genes into that, and he's able to stop the myelin in cells, which allows stuff to regrow. But he couldn't regrow human stuff, and so he basically kind of like Kurt Connors the lizard from Spider-Man it, where
Yeah.
he put in like some salamander DNA or something, and he was able to grow a salamander hand that way. It's stupid, it's ridiculous, it's just there because we want a monster sort of thing going on in this episode. But the actor who portrayed Dr. Ridley, he did it really well, and
Yeah.
he sold it. The concept though is a little goofy. It's pretty goofy.
It's one of those Chris Carter things. This
Yeah.
reeks Chris Carter.
Yes, it does.
So yeah, the confession scene was good. They find out, or later, Scully finds out that somebody had been listening to her messages on her phone,
Yeah.
and luckily he touched it with his non-salamander hand because he left the print underneath it. So they know that he's alive. They know that he's around. They find out that uh, from the messages where she was going to be at some recital for a friend.
Yeah.
So they figure they're going to do a stake out there, and they load that place. Like unlike the bank episode previously, where only 2 FBI agents go. Like I swear, half of the people at this recital are plain clothed
Yeah.
or tuxedo wearing FBI agents. They're just everywhere. They got de-aged pictures of this guy. They're gonna find him, but they don't. And he's just walking around in the middle.
It's
Of all of them.
ridiculous. I actually made a note of this. There's a shot on the stage where he's like, I don't know if he's playing the piano or fixing
He's
the piano.
tuning it.
Yeah, he's got his salamander hand out.
Yeah.
There's a woman like playing the cello right next to him or something. He's got his salamander hand out, and then when he leaves the piano and they show him again, he's wearing these gigantic, gaudy gloves on both hands. And I'm like, are you trying to tell me that not a single FBI agent in this whole fucking place can see the guy with 2 gigantic white gloves on his hands? Come on, Chris Carter. You got to
And then
write
just
something a little better than that.
just walk, like everybody's got their eyes on Scully because that they know that person is the target. And he just walks up to her and fucking guns her down in the middle of all of these people. And nobody gets a hand on him. He gets away
The
without a
incompetent.
hostage,
Yeah.
without having to kill anybody else, just scoots.
Yep.
And so Mulder goes after him with a couple of other people. You get back to the scene where he goes to the stage
Yeah.
and he grabs the cellist and he has them in the same situation where you're gonna shoot Mulder, you gotta shoot me, blah 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 blah, and one-handed, not even aiming down his aim reticle, he blasts this dude. Just
Yeah.
just takes him down without shooting the hostage. And then it goes into the sea, or we should take it all the way back. You find out that this dude has, for some reason, they brought in Deep Throat
Yeah.
like a couple of different times in this episode for little reason. There's supposed to be this subplot that it really just kind of peters out, that the FBI or the government wants the research about the Fountain of Youth, and that
Yeah,
the serial killer guy has it.
Yeah, because Barnett stole Ridley's research, and the U.S. Deep Throat's like, but the U.S. government's bargaining with him to get it. They're going to give him millions of dollars and set him up on a beach compound somewhere in the world. And Mulder's horrified by this, right? But Deep Throat is just like, yeah, I mean, this sort of research will change everything. We can give everybody salamander hands. We can give people salamander dicks for all we want, or Mulder,
Oh,
whatever
yeah.
we want. We can give people those, and that's the weird kind of subplot going on here. There's no need for Deep Throat to be in this at all.
No. And that we're just now remembering to talk about it at the
Yeah.
very end of the episode just shows that it was pointless. It was there.
Yeah.
But okay, so he shoots him. He does not kill him outright. So you get this scene where they're trying to bring him back to life, and Mulder's watching through a surgery window, and there's is this cigarette smoking
Yes.
man
Yes.
standing there yelling at him? Where's the fucking documents at?
is.
Salamander hand.
It is. It's a cigarette smoking man, and they don't really call attention to it. It's just William B. Davis is in there yelling at the salamander man to try to tell him where the research is hidden
Right, and the
before he
ADR
dies.
is so bad, like, it's all you hear in the room. You hear, like, medical scuffle stuff and this dude just yelling at him, "Where's the documents at? Where am I at? Don't you die on me!" Like,
It's so bad.
miserably bad. But, yeah, I had to ask if that was the cigarette smoking. Because
Yep, that was.
also, if you look kinda at his hand, it looks like he has a cigarette in his left hand,
He
like,
probably
just
does.
sitting there smoking in the OR.
Yeah, but then you do get that cool shot at the very end of this where Mulder's kind of talking about the research. Where could it be, right? Where did Barnett's going to take it to his grave, and the camera's kind of panning through. I don't know if it's an airport or something, and it sort of ends on that. I guess like a lock box in the airport where people can, you see this in every action movie of the '90s. They always put the drugs and the money in sort of like an airport safe or something, and it's there. And I do like how X Files always ends these things with it's not really the end. So it sort of pushes in on that sort of lockbox, whatever, and then Mulder says something to the effect of like, somehow we haven't heard the last of John Barnett. And I thought that was cool. It was like at some point someone's going to find that research, and who knows what's going to happen with it. Cool thing about this, like,
Salamander dicks for everybody.
exactly, all the salamander dicks, multiple salamander dicks if you want them. I mean, you can have them. Um, did you notice the music in this episode was very different from the music in the previous episodes? And it reminded me, honestly, of you when we played Phantasmagoria. There's all these like Gregorian chants in the music. It's like dong da da da, like people, a chorus of people singing German or something in the background. I'm like, this is like Phantasmagoria. I don't know why, but that reminded me of you when I was watching this. Um, I didn't like this episode.
I did
Uh,
not either. I wrote at the big top of the page after I was done that this episode was ass.
yes, it's bad. This is probably the first episode this season. Well, no, Space. I didn't like Space either. This and Space are right up there with in terms of like, ugh, this just the story was lame, the villain was lame. It's all over the place. I don't give a shit about anything going on in here. I mean, I like nothing. there's nothing. I mean, Reggie Purdue. Okay, I liked Reggie. Reggie's like the saving grace in this, so it's probably a little bit better than Space for me because there was nothing really I liked in that one. But yeah, this is rough. In terms of facts, the Fox Network Standards and Practices Department fought with the producers over the scene where Barnett strangles Purdue, and as a result, the producers were forced to reduce the length of the scene. Who cares? That's uninteresting. But one kind of cool thing here was the footage of the young girl with progeria, and I think you mentioned the black and white footage that they watch with Ridley, and there's a actual girl walking around, a little girl with that, was filmed after the production crew contacted the Progeria Society and were put in touch with the family of Courtney Arciaga, who was a young girl with the disease. She and her family were fans of the X-Files, and they flew her from San Diego to Vancouver so she could shoot the scene and be in the episode, which I
That's
thought was really cool. And it's just like, wow, that's even in season one, tons of people love this show, right? And it was cool that they were able to get this little girl, kind of like one of her dreams was to be in an X Files episode, and flew her up for that. But that feel good story is the best thing about this episode, in my opinion. I didn't like it. Nothing. I
and
have nothing else to say about it.
yeah,
Really.
no, I was glad it was over.
Yeah. So that's it, ladies and gentlemen, for this episode of Exhuming the X-Files. And next week, we're going to be back with episode 17. We're going back to aliens. We're going to talk EBE, directed by William Grand, written by Glenn Morgan and James Wong. So, hit that like and subscribe, notification bell. You know what to do. We'll see you next Friday, everybody.